and its happenings, of so many volumes published in such and such a time, of the influence upon him of this or that author or school of poetry, of the friends who took up his time or gave him inspiration, and above all, one must see what the love of nature has done for the poet. Alice's essay seeks to render more human, if more profound and complex, a person she once loved, but later came to resent during his lifetime, and after his death in 1906, a person she had eventually come to appreciate. The title Poet Laureate of his race, which Paul assumed during the height of his professional career, underestimated the sophistication of his poetry. In lyrical prose, Alice describes the poems Paul wrote that best mirrored his unique literary sensibility. One of these poems was Sympathy, published in his fourth book of poetry, Lyrics of the Hearthside, 1899. The bird's cage, according to Alice, actually referred to the iron grating of the book stacks in the Library of Congress, where the torrid sun poured its rays down into the courtyard of the library and heated the iron grilling of the book stacks until they were like prison bars in more senses than one. Paul worked at the Library of Congress from September 1897 through October 1898. During this period, a series of illnesses cut short his employment there. The dry dust of the dry books rasped sharply in his hot throat, she remembered. What had initially been the proverbial job to die for turned into a job that was killing his body and spirit. Being a poet, shut up in an iron cage, with medical works, was ironic incongruity, Alice wrote. Among the stacks, Paul was not a patron, but a prisoner. Now he understood how the bird felt when it beat its wings against its cage. Alice could very well have been overstating the misery surrounding the nature of Paul's job in the Library of Congress. Others who witnessed him there tell a different story, suggesting that the Library of Congress, for all its faults as an oppressive work environment, could never truly suppress Paul's brilliant sense of not only literary time and place, but also how distinctive forms of art, such as music and poetry, could converge, stimulate his imagination, and move audiences. Although its autobiographical basis in Paul's stint at the Library of Congress may be debatable, the poem Sympathy nonetheless testifies in profound existential ways to the miraculous and transcendent bond between the poet and the world. The poem highlights the direct ratio of the poet to sympathy, to the knowledge, as the poem's speaker puts it, of three refrains: what the caged bird feels, why the caged bird beats his wing, and why the caged bird sings. Paul struggled with the belief that he lived and wrote like a bird trapped in a cage, however gilded it might have been by the acclaim of admirers. The poem would reverberate in the century after its publication, its lyrical poignancy and thematic cogency extended in Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, 1969. In its depiction of how a young black girl could grow and achieve a personal sense of dignity in the face of rampant racism and sexism, Angelou's autobiography reveals the perennial relevance of Dunbar's original song. A caged bird beating its wings is the story of the individual, imprisoned by societal preconceptions and struggling to escape. Describing the life and times of Paul Laurence Dunbar requires that we tell this story. Prodigious and prolific, he was a serious professional writer for a total of 18 years, from 1888 until his death. During this time, he released 14 books of poetry, 4 collections of short stories, and 4 novels, a body of work that showcased his mastery of literary genres: the Western lyric, the romantic poetry of England, the fireside or schoolroom poetry of the United States, the realism and naturalism of American fiction, the racial uplift of African American literature, and the dialect of informal English. Newspapers and magazines across the country syndicated many of the individual texts in his 18 books of poems and short stories.